welcome back to another episode of Spin This. Today we're going to be talking about hits by iconic duos, so let's spin this. Would you believe that Daryl Hall and John Oates wrote Rich Girl about a rich guy? Released on February 5th, 1977, Daryl Hall and John Oates, better known as Hall & Oates, debuted Rich Girl on Billboard's Top 40, which only grew to be their first #1 Billboard Hot 100 hit on March 26, 1977. The song was inspired by a guy named Victor Walker. Victor was a wealthy college student and ex-boyfriend to Hall's then-girlfriend, Sarah Allen. Sarah was also the inspiration for Sarah Smile. Daryl Hall originally wrote the lyrics as, "He's a rich guy, he can rely on the old man's money." But after singing it a few times, he decided that rich girl just rolled off the tongue better. Cause she's a rich girl, I just got to find the me. Now let's talk about that old man's money. Daryl Hall usually just brushed it off in interviews, saying that Victor's dad just owned some fast food chain. But music historians dug into it and found out the truth. His dad actually owned the Walker Bros original Pancake House, which is a legendary upscale diner chain in the suburbs of Chicago. He also managed a massive, highly lucrative portfolio of KFC franchises in the area. But the wildest thing is, Victor knew that the song was written about him, and instead of being offended, he absolutely embraced it. He loved having the status of being the real identity of a #1 hit. Alright, let's move far from this opera. Because Jack White initially wanted the riff from Seven Nation Army to be a James Bond theme song. Released in 2003, Seven Nation Army is one of the most recognizable songs in rock history. The most wildest part of the song is there's no bass on the track. It's a 1950s K hollow body guitar that was plugged into a Digitech Whammy pitch shifting pedal, which dropped the audio down a full octave. Jack White originally stumbled upon the riff at the Corner Hotel during a sound check in Melbourne, Australia. He showed it to one of his friends who was in a band at the time as well, and he just replied with a But also at the time, he genuinely thought, if I ever needed to make a James Bond theme song, then this was the riff that I was going to use. Actually, the title itself was just a temporary placeholder. When Jack White was a little kid, he misheard the Salvation Army as the Seven Nation Army. I can see it. So he temporarily titled the song Seven Nation Army, and it stuck. Lyrically, the song tells a story of a protagonist fleeing his hometown after discovering his friends are gossiping about him behind his back. He runs away from his hometown, but only to return because of loneliness. That's so sad. He was so lonely on his own that he would rather be in a toxic town. Jack, but I mean, it was coming from a real place for him. At the time, he had told the world that Meg White was his sister, but in reality, they were ex-spouses that divorced in 2000, right before the band exploded globally. The constant intense media rumors about their relationship directly inspired some of the lyrics. The track won the 2004 Grammy for Best Rock Song, and Jack White did eventually get hired to write a James Bond theme song. Jack White also went back to the Corner Hotel in Melbourne, Australia, 20 years later on his No Name tour. When he revisited the hotel, he played the riff again, but at this point in time, the song had reached over 2 billion streams. Also, Jack White has still, to this day, never been to Wichita, but he says, I'm going to Wichita. Anyway, I won't leave you hanging on like a yo-yo because Wham! Wham! Wrote Wake Me Up Before You Go Go based on Andrew Ridgeley's spelling no-no. Wake Me Up Before You Go Go was the song that completely launched Wham, aka George Michael and Andrew Ridgeley, into the top charts. This song was actually their very first #1 hit in both the US and the UK. Got my swatches. They're my mom's. This one's a Keith Haring swatch. Jealous? This was their first song to hit #1 in both the US and the UK in 1984. The track became a cultural phenomenon. From the music video's hyper bright short shorts and the iconic Choose Life t-shirts, it became an instant fashion staple. But the entire song was completely born out of a spelling error. Andrew Ridgeley wrote a note to his parents one day saying, "Wake me up, up." The second up was clearly a mistake, but he jokingly wrote "go go" at the end of it. Wake me up before you go go. George Michael saw this note and then instantly thought that this would be a perfect catchy title for a song. With absolutely no demo and just everything mapped out in his head, George Michael went into the studio and recorded the full thing. horns included. Now, I have a question for you guys. What are your thoughts on the relationship between George and Andrew? People spent years in the 80s completely dissecting their friendship and wondering if some other sort of underlying tension led to Wham finally breaking up at the peak of their fame. I don't know, I'm not saying anything, but let me know your theories down below. When Hey Ya dropped in 2003, it was like a runaway freight train. It was the first song on iTunes to ever reach 1 million downloads. And the brilliant music video was directly inspired by the Beatles' historic Ed Sullivan Show performance. But beneath that incredibly upbeat, infectious acoustic funk song lies one of the most depressing lyrical concepts ever put on a pop record. Written entirely by Andre 3000, Hey Ya explores the fear of being alone and how modern couples stay trapped in completely miserable, unhappy, unhealthy relationships just because society expects them to. I don't know which one is sadder, this one or Seven Nation Army. Andre actually calls out the listeners too with the line, "Y'all don't want to hear me, you just want to dance." And of course, we can't talk about this song without talking about the iconic line, "Shake it like a Polaroid picture." The line was actually so massively popular that Polaroid actually reported a massive surge in camera and film sales and used that as hype for their marketing campaigns. Man, I wish we could turn back time to the good old days. Tyler Joseph and Josh Dun might be stressed out, but they're also sipping Capri Suns like it's Dom Perignon. Stressed Out became a massive generational anthem that perfectly captured the crushing pressure to make money and the anxiety-inducing transition from childhood innocence into the overwhelming reality of adulting. Stressed Out spent 23 weeks at #1 on Billboard's rock charts and peaked at #2 on Billboard's Hot 100. I'm not done. Because Josh Dun. Most of the music video was actually filmed at Josh Dun's childhood home in Ohio, which added to the raw nostalgia of the song. Blurryface made music history by being the first album ever to have every single song go gold or higher. And for all you hardcore fans, this is where the 21 Pilots lore really started. From the black painted hands and neck to the elaborate secret handshake to... If you know, you know. The character Blurryface is the literal personification of Tyler's self-doubt and generalized anxiety. When they won the 2017 Grammy for Best Pop Duo/Group Performance, they famously took off their pants and received the award in their underwear. They did this to fulfill a promise that they made years prior while watching the Grammys in their underwear. They said then that if they were ever to receive a Grammy, they would receive it exactly how they were right then and there, which was in their underwear. During a 2016 concert in Cleveland, right when the song was being played everywhere, every radio station, all across America, Tyler Joseph changed some of the lyrics live to being, "Funny how overplayed songs sound like crap." They're probably one of the most performatively silly bands. Time for a break and a word from our sponsors. Do we have a sponsor? Don't count on it. Well, we actually don't have a sponsor yet, but like, subscribe, and share this video so that one day we can. Paul Simon and Art Garfunkel wrote the song The Sound of Silence based on Paul Simon's habit to say "Hello darkness, my old friend" to his bathroom. When they originally released the acoustic version in 1964, the record bombed so hard that the duo actually split up. But then their producer Tom Wilson did something highly unauthorized. Without telling Simon or Garfunkel, he took the original acoustic tape and overdubbed electric guitar, bass, and drums, and then quietly released the remix. That secret electric version blew up, reaching #1 in 1966. This saved Simon and Garfunkel's career. Art Garfunkel has stated that the song is fundamentally about the tragic inability for humans to communicate with each other on a meaningful, emotional level. But the imagery of the song came from a very specific and quirky habit that Paul Simon had. Paul Simon absolutely loved to write his lyrics completely alone in the pitch black dark, sitting on his tile bathroom floor with the faucet running. He said the soothing sound of the silent echo coming from the tiles and the water helped him to hyper focus and really get things done. So that legendary opening, "Hello darkness, my old friend," was a total reference to Paul Simon's habit of sitting in the darkness. He ruled the world of music in that room. Kurt Smith and Roland Orzabal really think everybody wants to rule the world. This song spent 2 weeks at #1 on Billboard's Hot 100 and won the 1986 Brit Award for Best British Single. But the duo originally considered the song a total afterthought. It was a last-minute addition to their album, and it took relentless encouragement from their producer Chris Hughes to get them to actually record it. The track was written, recorded, and produced in only 2 weeks. But beneath the gorgeous synth-pop sound, there's a deeply cynical underlying message, detailing the corrupted human desire for power, control, and societal greed. The title itself, though, caused a little bit of drama with the Clash's singer Joe Strummer. Joe Strummer was utterly convinced that Tears for Fears directly stole the title from one of their songs from 1980 called Charlie Don't Surf. Years later, Joe Strummer spotted Roland Orzabal sitting at a restaurant. Strummer walked over to his table, looked him dead in the eye, and said, "You owe me a $5." Without hesitation, Roland Orzabal takes out a £5 note and gives it to Joe Strummer. Conflict averted. Thomas Mangleterre and Guy Manuel du Homem Cristo did this way harder, better, faster, and stronger than Kanye. Released in 2001, Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger became a monumental dance track. In 2007, they won a Grammy for Best Live Performance for their live show on the Alive tour. It was one of the earliest electronic tracks to turn the vocoder into a lead instrument. It blew up even further when Kanye West famously took the sample and created one of his hit singles, Stronger. It blew up even further when the viral internet video Daft Hands became a massive YouTube trend in 2007. But when the track was first dropped, critics accused Daft Punk of being straight up plagiarists. The instrumental backbone of the song is built on a heavily sped up funk loop sampled from Edwin Birdsong's 1979 disco track Cola Bottle Baby. But Daft Punk never tried to hide that they did this. They actually gave Birdsong co-writing credit. Actually, Edward Birdsong loved the track. He kind of saw it as free advertising because Daft Punk was introducing his instrumentation to a whole new generation of kids. Pardon my French, but it's time for la prochaine rotation. Have I said that right? Sonny Bono woke up Cher to record I Got You Babe, which was written on cardboard. I Got You Babe was written entirely by Sonny Bono on a tiny cheap piano that he had in his garage that he had bought for $85. I mean, it literally had 3 keys broken. Because he didn't have any notepaper lying around in the garage, Sonny wrote the lyrics on a scrap piece of cardboard that he had tore off from a dry cleaner's coat hanger package. When he finished the draft in the dead of the night, he woke up Cher to get her to sing it with him. Cher actually didn't like the song at first and only agreed to record it because she wanted to go back to sleep. The line, "Let them say your hair's too long, I don't care," might sound incredibly tame today, but back in 1965, this was a hugely controversial lyric. Sonny wrote that rhyme as a direct response to upscale restaurants who would routinely kick them out because of their wild, long-haired, bell-bottom, boho-y style. Because of that raw defiance, song quickly morphed from a love ballad to an anti-establishment anthem for the youth counterculture. This song is the total opposite of Seven Nation Army because Little Monster by Royal Blood has no guitar in it. Going #1 in both the UK and the US rock charts, Little Monster by Mike Kerr and Ben Thatcher, better known as Royal Blood, is the absolute musical opposite of our second spin, Seven Nation Army. While the White Stripes had a guitar mimicking a bass, Mike Kerr had a bass mimicking a guitar. The entire band consists of just drums and bass. That massive stadium guitar-like sound that you hear is a bass guitar running straight through an electro-harmonic POG, aka polyphonic octave generator pedal, which pitched his bass an entire octave higher. And then he split the signal into fuzz and overdrive pedals, which connected directly to a Fender guitar amplifier. This unfiltered garage rock is run by just 2 guys. I am so excited to announce our very special guest, Dave Grohl. He should be here any second. Weren't we supposed to get Dave Grohl? He'll be here any second. Hey Steve, it's me again. Yeah, what's the ETA on Dave Grohl? Oh, okay. How did they send them to the wrong state? So where is he? Illinois? Oh, don't blame this on the weather, Steve. The weather can't accidentally book the wrong flight. Get him the right flight.